Alright, guys, part 3, the most important information for TIs to understand. We're going to get right into it. We left off right here on bloodlines and twinning. A majority of the victims and survivors of Monarch come from multi-generational satanic families and are ostensibly programmed to fill their destiny as the chosen ones, or chosen generations, a term coined by Mengele at Auschwitz. Some are adopted out to families of similar origin. Others used in this neurological nightmare are deemed as the expendable ones, non-bloodliners, like most of us being stalked. Usually coming from orphanages, foster care homes, or incestuous families with a long history of pedophilia. There also appears to be a pattern of family members affiliated with government or military intelligence agencies. Many of the abused come from families who use Catholicism, Mormonism, or charismatic Christianity as a front for their abominable activities, though members of other religious groups are also involved. Victims or survivors generally respond more readily to a rigid, religious, dogmatic, legalistic, hierarchical structure because it parallels their base programming. Authority usually goes unchallenged as their will has been usurped through subjective and command-oriented conditioning. Physical identification characteristics on victims and survivors include electrical prod scars, resultant moles on their skin. A few may have had various parts of their bodies mutilated by knives, branding irons, or needles. Butterfly or occult tattoos are also common. Most of the time, if you're a TI and you see somebody with a butterfly or an occult tattoo, they're being programmed. They've already been programmed and accepted the programming fully, and they're being used against you. They don't even know it. Are also common. Generally, bloodliners are less likely to have the subsequent markings as their skin is to remain pure and unblemished. The ultimate purpose of the sophisticated manipulation of these individuals may sound unrealistic depending upon our interpretive understanding of the physical and spiritual realm. The deepest and darkest altars within bloodliners are purported to be dormant until the Antichrist is revealed. These New World Order altars supposedly contain callback orders and instructions to train and or initiate a large influx of people, possibly clones or soulless ones, thereby simulating social control programs into the new millennia. Non-biological twinning is yet another bizarre feature observed within Monarch programming. For instance, two young non-related children would be ceremoniously initiated in a magical soul-bonding ritual, so they might be inseparably paired for eternity. Possibly another Joseph Mengele connection. They essentially share two halves of the programmed information, making them interdependent upon one another. Paranormal phenomena such as astral projection, telepathy, extrasensory perception, etc. appear to be more pronounced between those who have undergone this process. Now, the levels of Monarch programming. Alpha level, regarded as the general or regular programming within the base control personality, characterized by extremely pronounced memory retention along with substantially increased physical strength and visual acuity. Alpha programming is accomplished through deliberately subdividing the victim's personality, which in essence, using music, using all types of conditioning, in essence causes a left brain, right brain division, allowing for a programmed union of left and right through neuron pathway stimulation. Beta, referred to as sexual programming. This programming eliminates all learned moral convictions and stimulates the primitive sexual instinct devoid of inhibitions. Cat alters may come out at this level. Delta, this is known as the killer program, originally developed for training special agents or elite soldiers, Delta Force, 1st Earth Battalion, Mossad, etc. In covert operations, optimal adrenal output and controlled aggression is evident. Subjects are devoid of fear, very systematic in carrying out their assignment. Self-destruct or suicide instructions are layered in at this level. Beta considered to the psychic programming. Bloodliners, those coming from multi-generational satanic families, were determined to exhibit a greater propensity for having telepathic abilities than did non-bloodliners. Due to its evident limitations, however, various forms of electronic mind control systems were developed and introduced, namely biomedical human telemetry devices, brain implants, directed energy lasers using microwaves and or electromagnetics. It is reported these are used in conjunction with highly advanced computers and sophisticated satellite tracking systems. Omega Monarch level. A self-destruct form of programming, also known as code green. The corresponding behaviors include suicidal tendencies and or self-mutilation. This program is generally activated when the victim or survivor begins therapy or interrogation and too much memory is being recovered. Gamma. Another form of system protection is through deception programming, which elicits misinformation and misdirection. This level is intertwined with demonology and tends to regenerate itself at a later time if inappropriately deactivated. Methods and components. The initial process begins with creating disassociation within the subject, usually occurring from the time of birth to about 6 years. This is primarily achieved through the use of electroshock, and it is at times performed even when the child is in the mother's womb. Due to the severe trauma induced through ECT, sexual abuse, and other methods, the mind splits off into alternate personalities from the core, formerly referred to as multiple personality disorder. It is presently recognized as dissociative identity disorder and is the basis for monarch programming. Further conditioning of the victim's mind is enhanced through hypnotism, double-bind coercion, pleasure-pain reversals, food, water, sleep, and sensory deprivation, along with various drugs which alter certain cerebral functions. The next stage is to embed and compress detailed commands or messages within the specified alter. This is achieved through the use of high-tech headsets in conjunction with computer-driven generators which emit inaudible sound waves or harmonics that affect the RNA covering of neuron pathways to the subconscious and unconscious mind. Virtual reality? Optical devices are sometimes used simultaneously with the harmonic generators projecting pulsating colored lights, subliminals, and split-screen visuals. High voltage electroshock is then used for memory dissolution. Programming is updated periodically and reinforced through visual, auditory, and written mediums. Some of the first programming themes include The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, both heavily saturated with occultic symbolism. Many of the recent Disney movies and cartoons are used in a twofold manner, desensitizing the majority of the population using subliminals and neuro-linguistic programming and deliberately constructing specific triggers and keys for base programming of highly impressionable monarch children. A prime example of how subliminal programming works is by looking at the recent Disney cinematic sensation Pocahontas, curiously billed as their 33rd highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry animated movie. In the movie, Grandmother Willow is a mystical 400-year-old tree who counsels the motherless Pocahontas to listen to her heart and help her realize all the answers lie within. Grandmother Willow is constantly talking in doublespeak and using reversals, i.e., sometimes the right path is not the easiest one. The esoteric derivative being the left path, the path that leads to destruction, is the easiest one. In Illuminati-structured MPD systems, the willow tree represents the occultic powers of Druidism. The intrinsic imagery of the tree's branches, leaves, and root systems are very significant, as some of the dark spiritual properties associated with the willow tree programming are: 1. The branches are used to whip victims in rituals for cleansing purposes. A willow tree can endure severe weather disturbances and is known for its pliability and flexibility. Victims/survivors of the programming describe the willow branches wrapping around them with no hope of escape. The deep root system of the willow tree makes the victim/survivor feel as if they are falling deeper and deeper into an abyss while in a hypnotic trance. Music plays an instrumental role in programming through combinations of variable tones, rhythms, and words. Frightmaster Stephen King's numerous novels and subsequent movies are purported by credible sources to be used for such villainous purposes. One of his latest books, Insomnia, features a picture of King with the trigger phrase, "We never sleep," indicative of someone with MPD/DID, below an all-seeing eye. A partial list of other mediums used to reinforce base programming are Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, The Lion King, E.T., Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Trancers 2, Batman, Bewitched, Fantasy Island reboot, Tiny Toons, DuckTales, The Dead Sea Scrolls, and The Tall Book of Make-Believe. A few movies which depict or portray some aspect of monarch programming are Hellraiser 3, Raising Cain, Labyrinth, Telephone, Johnny Mnemonic, Point of No Return, The Lawnmower Man, and Closetland. Programmers and places. It's difficult to figure out who the original programmer of this satanic project was due to the substantial amount of disinformation and cross-contamination propagated by the powers that be. The two that went by the color-coded name of Dr. Green are a Jewish doctor named Dr. Grunbaum, who supposedly collaborated with the Nazis during World War II, and Dr. Joseph Mengele, whose trademark of cold-blooded and calculating brutality has not only scarred the souls of survivors from Auschwitz, but also a countless number of victims throughout the world. Mengele's direct involvement at the infamous Auschwitz concentration camp was suspiciously downplayed during the Nuremberg trials, and consequently no intensified effort by the U.S. and its allies was directed toward his capture. As a means to confuse serious investigators as to his whereabouts, U.S. officials would report Mengele being a non-threatening recluse in Paraguay or Brazil, or that he was simply dead. The angel of death miraculously must have come back to life at least 5 different times. His unprecedented research at the expense of thousands of lives undoubtedly was a significant bonus to U.S. interests. Besides using the pseudonym of Dr. Green, survivors knew him as Vatterchen, or Daddy. Shona Joseph, Beautiful Joseph, David and Fairchild. A gracefully handsome man of slight stature, mingled with disarmed people with his gentle demeanor, while at other times he would explode into violent rages. Other characteristics remembered by survivors were the cadence of his shiny black boots as he paced back and forth in his I love you not Daisy game. When he pulled off the last Daisy pedal, he would maliciously torture and kill a small child in front of the other child he was programming. Distraught survivors also recalled being thrown naked into cages with monkeys who were trained to viciously abuse them. Evidently, Mengele enjoyed reducing people to the level of animals. He also would purposely restrain his victims from crying, screaming, or showing any excessive emotion. Dr. D. Ewan Cameron, also known as Dr. White, was the former head of the Canadian, American, and World Psychiatric Associations. Because of Cameron's extensive experience and credentials, the CIA's Alan Dulles funneled millions of dollars throughout organizations like the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, which Cameron ruthlessly presided over. Experimentations were conducted at several locations in Montreal, mostly at McGill University, St. Mary's Hospital, and Allen Memorial Institute. Besides the conventional methods of psychiatric tyranny such as electroshock, drug injections, and lobotomies, Cameron conceived the technique of psychic driving, wherein unsuspecting patients were kept in a drug-induced coma for several weeks and administered a regimen of electroshocks, while electronic helmets were strapped to their heads and repetitive auditory messages were transmitted at variable speeds. Many of those exploited were abused children, which had been run through the Roman Catholic orphanage system. Not surprisingly, Dr. Cameron had been conveniently left out of most psychiatric journals. This may have been, in fact, largely due to Project MKUltra being publicly exposed in 1970 through lawsuits filed by Canadian survivors and their families. The CIA and Canadian government settled out of court so as not to be required to officially admit to any wrongdoing. And we'll do the last part tomorrow, guys. But keep in mind, don't trust anybody with occult tattoos or butterfly tattoos. They're part of it.